NewsX with Media Culture. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has tabled India's economic survey for 2024-25 in the Parliament, providing an assessment of the performance of the economy in the current financial year. The survey reviews the current economic performance and identifies national challenges while also suggesting future reforms and growth strategies. The document was prepared by a team led by Chief Economic Advisor V. Anantha Nageshwaran. According to the economic survey, the GDP growth rate in FY26 is pegged at 6.3 to 6.8%, driven by agriculture and services. Retail inflation softened from 5.4% in the financial year 2023-24 to 4.9% during the April-December period of 24 to 25. India's total exports have registered a steady growth in the first 9 months of FY25, reaching $602.6 billion. Growth in services and goods exports, excluding petroleum, gems and jewelry, was 10.4%. The growth in agricultural credit as of 29 November 2024 in the current financial year was 5.1%. Meanwhile, the growth in industrial credit picked up and stood at 4.4% as of the end of November 2024, higher than 3.2% recorded a year ago. Meanwhile, the economic survey also calls for deregulation to drive growth. The economic survey has also asserted that India needs to grow around 8% for a decade or two to achieve its Viksit Bharat dreams. Okay, all right. We have some more details to present to our viewers. We're now going to quickly look at the 10 big takeaways of the economic survey. Number one, India's growth rate, GDP, has been projected to be between 6.3 to 6.8% for the next financial year. Let's quickly move on to number two. Urban employment rate for people aged 15 and above improved from 6.6 to 6.4% in 2024. So that's the second big highlight. Retail inflation has softened from 5.4% last year to 4.9% in April-December 2024. Let's move on to the fourth big takeaway. Food inflation, we've been told, is likely to soften in Q4 FY 2025 with seasonal easing of vegetable prices. So that's a big takeaway there. We've been told that food inflation will be brought under control. Inflation is expected to align towards the RBI targets with projections of 4.8% in FY25 and 4.2% in FY26. The sixth big takeaway for our viewers, foreign direct investment inflows have increased to 17.9% year on year. So a 17.9% growth in foreign direct investment inflows as well. Rupee depreciation in 2024 mainly due to strong US dollar amid geopolitical tensions, with only 0.5% annual depreciation projected in the next 5 years. Another big takeaway there, the depreciation of rupee against the dollar. Then we've been told non-performing assets in the banking system have further declined to a 12-year low of 2.6%, a huge takeaway for the nation. Let's move on to takeaway number 8. On 23rd May 2024, total market capitalization of BSE listed stocks closed above $5 trillion. Let's move on to takeaway number 9. Share of consumer credit and total bank credit has risen from 18.3% to 32.4% in FY24. A huge change seen in the past decade. And last, of course, but not the least, India needs to maintain 8% growth rate to achieve its goal of becoming Viksit Bharat by 2047. So those were some of the key takeaways that we've put together for our viewers of the economic survey. I'm going to now go into a deep dive on the same points with our guests who join us on the broadcast. I see Gautam Mukherjee with us. Gautam Mukherjee, let me begin with you. I'm sure you've had a moment to now glance over some of the key highlights of the economic survey. What's the biggest takeaway for you, sir?
Well, the main thing is how much money is put into stimulating infrastructure development. That includes all the highways, the ports, tunnels, things of that order, as well as the railways, airports, and in addition to infrastructure development, what is going to be done to stimulate manufacturing, which will also be a major job creator, and uh, easing credit, which to a certain extent the Reserve Bank of India has already done. This has been received very well. They've increased liquidity without cutting interest rates, and they may not cut interest rates in the next meeting in about 7 days, but they have infused some liquidity, which is very welcome. So 6.8 is entirely possible provided the economy revives. It has slowed down and stagnated to a certain extent, and this must be reversed. As far as taxation goes, I don't expect any big things. I think the government is not in a position to do very much, though there is every chance that they will ease the process a little for the middle class by either exempting taxation up to 10 lakhs, which is one thought, or you know, providing other threshold amounts which are exempt from taxation.
Okay.
I think they're already doing away with the dual taxation system for direct taxes, and therefore to make it possible for greater consumption, something has to be done. There are nearly 600 million middle class, and they cannot be ignored.
Okay, Gautam Mukherjee, I'll come back to the aspect of the middle class in just a moment from now. But very interestingly, before I move on to the other guests, an interesting point today has been raised as far as R&D is concerned. We saw in the economic survey that there is now a push for the private sector to really focus on investing in R&D in Sunrise, in our sunrise sectors and some of the areas that are bound to now do well in the next coming decades. Your thoughts on the same, because a pertinent point there was raised by the government as well, that in today's day and age, maximum investment in R&D is through the government still in India. Maybe that's essentially where we're lacking, because obviously for example, for an America to reach an age and stage of having a SpaceX, for example, in the private sector, operating in the private sector, did require many years of just infusion of a lot of money. Some of the money has come in, of course, from NASA, but the rest, of course, is private money that's gone into building SpaceX. We would perhaps need that sort of a system in India as well. We keep talking about how the money is in India now for the next coming decades, that we are the emerging economy. So how do you foresee what the government can possibly do to make that push further, getting the private sector to be involved not just in manufacturing but also in R&D, which is essentially from a business point of view seen as a little bit of a burning of money for the first maybe even a decade or so in some sectors?
Well, Devika, I think as long as it's allied to joint venture manufacturing, that means induction of technology from abroad with a domestic partner, a large company like L&T or Reliance or Tata's, and R&D on the side, so that they are able to improve the original technology that is brought in, because it is incumbent to all the time improve what you start with in order to keep up with technological uptrends. To do R&D in isolation for the private sector is going to be very, very difficult. America has done it mainly through endowing its universities. We are, a long way away from that. We are creating more and more IITs and IIMs, but it will be some time before they reach critical mass beyond the few that are already in place. And so to sort of adjunct the R&D along with manufacturing in the private sector in joint venture is probably the right way to go. It's the same for defense manufacturing in the public sector and in the private public sector, which is starting to happen now in various fields, also in shipping, which is being given a boost. So in all of this, private sector will be only too glad to try and invest in the private in R&D, provided they have some kind of cash flow already happening because of orders received in joint venture with foreign partners.
Right, absolutely. Gautam Mukherjee, I will come back to you in just a moment. We also have with us Dr. Pooja Kapoor. Dr. Pooja Kapoor, your first big thoughts and takeaways from the economic survey.
So, as Dr. Mukherjee said, I am very much in sync with his thoughts and the processes. And I do stand with the same thing that we need to put up a lot of things, but yeah, the things has to be put in a good way. Like I again will quote him again, the same that, we are producing a lot and a lot of IITs. I agree to that. A lot of medical colleges. The UP has like every district has a medical college, but we really have to make sure that the quality maintenance, the checks, the things, it's not just the number, it's also the quality which will really, really matter. So apart from the number, we really have to make sure that the quality management, the strictness, the guidelines, everything has to be followed in a good way. And R&D is something which requires a lot of effort, a lot of innovation, a lot of things. So we really have to make sure that it's not just the part which we just go like copying the thing and just manufacturing it the same way as these are done. But for that, we really have to make sure that a lot of scientific things goes in, and that requires a lot of interest, a lot of infra, a lot of discipline. And I think that is what's going to make us much better.
Okay, Dr. Pooja Kapoor, at the same time, an important perspective has also been raised in this year's economic survey, wherein it's been said that AI, or like artificial intelligence, is expected to outperform humans in certain domains, and they've really highlighted healthcare for one, education, business and financial services. But the fact that we're now looking at the disruption of the healthcare industry and the healthcare sector through AI, how do you view this?
So I believe I'm a staunch believer of AI. AI is there to come, invade and stay. But if you take AI into a good way, I think that's how the human race is going to be, taking the help of AI and go in sync with the AI. So AI is what? AI is machine learning. But in no way machine learning can go above the creativity and the spirit of humans. But I think AI is to come, it is there, and it's going to go beyond things also. But also it cannot replace human things. The creativity is there to stay. If you're a human, you are creative, and AI cannot anyway take up and replicate that. So I think we can work in sync, work in there. Like as for radiology, if you see that a lot of radiologists use AI in mammographies, in MRI scans. I'm a pediatric neurologist, so I know I could really take the help of an AI to get the forum and pick up the choices, okay, what could be the diagnosis? But the final verdict would be mine, because I would be able to scan and put up my mind like, okay, this is right, this is right, this is right, and this could be wrong. So AI would help me to find out and localize my choices. But obviously, as a human being, the final verdict still lies with the human being.
Okay, all right. I'm going to bring in on that note Professor Vivek Singh into the conversation as well. Professor Vivek Singh, your big takeaway from the economic survey, sir.
Actually, economic survey is very positive because ultimately we are expecting and that 6.3% to 6.8% growth we are going to have. And as far as because ultimately the most important thing is the generation of revenue. So more than 10 lakh crores are being generated through GST. So it may be the agricultural growth that is more than 3.5% or the service sector growth. There is no problem.
Okay, all right. I think we've lost that line. Let me bring Gautam Mukherjee back into the conversation. Gautam Mukherjee, as far as the disruption of AI is concerned, the only legitimate concern that comes out of it, and that's been said out there in the survey as well, is a concern over large-scale displacement of labor, which could arise from the adoption of AI into several domains, as I've mentioned, healthcare, research, law, education, business, and financial services. How do you think India could possibly mitigate some of these challenges then? Because at the one hand, we want to be adopting AI, but at the same time, we're also now the most populous country in the world. We have the youngest population that is expected to be a part of the labor force, is expected to be a part of India's growth story.
Well, when something can compute so many times faster than what is possible now, there is no way you can keep it out. It's like the introduction of, every innovation from, internal combustion engines to computers in recent memory, where the same bogey is raised. It's going to put people out of their jobs. How can we need the work and so on. What has actually happened, if you look at the induction of computers and smartphones and the like, is that people have been energized and empowered to do many more things in a shorter time than they could earlier. AI now with DeepSeek, which has come in and blown the lid off the costs. Earlier, it was with NVIDIA, it was very expensive in terms of electric consumption, and indeed very investment intensive if you wanted to get AI out at the kind of quality that you wanted. Now, the Chinese have shown you a way to do it at 30% of the cost with 30% of the power consumption. And this is only the beginning. This is the first disruption. In each of these things, it's a question of how long it takes to commercialize the new technology. When internet came, everybody said, what a nice toy, but how are we ever going to make money off it? Today, the online is the real marketplace. And the old marketplace, retail, etc., is having a very difficult time to survive. So it's adapt or perish, Devika. There's no way out. You can't stop it.
All right, Dr. Pooja Kapoor, I leave the same, last word with you on the same aspect of how do you think India can perhaps really mitigate the two facts that we're looking at. On the one hand, we have to be able to bring in more artificial intelligence, adapt to the changing world, but at the same time, we do have to understand that we're the most populated country in the world at this point in time, and we also have the largest, youngest population that is ready to be trained and enter the workforce.
Yeah. So, as Sir said again, AI is there to come. It is there. So, we have to adopt ourselves. And I agree to that. Yeah, the workforce which we have. So, we were very much like we have the workforce, we have got the brains, we have got the young blood. So, the main thing is that AI definitely is going to cut you all the jobs which could be like just requires not a lot of brain but repetitions. So So obviously those all jobs would be redundant. There won't be any space for that. So what we have to do and make sure is that our young population has to be trained to think of more creative ways and not just be doing and depending on the job profiles which we used to do and used to get 10 years before. The world is changing in a very fast and a rapid rate. So few days back, Nvidia was there and then Chinese came in. You know, it was in a night, $600 billion woke up, gone off. So, you know, you have to be creative. And if we have got a young mind and young blood, obviously we would be able to get the maximum benefit of that. But if you think that you will be just doing the same old work, which we used to do 10 years back, if we won't follow the trend, if we won't follow the tradition, if we won't follow the what's next coming in a faster way, we will perish. As Mr. Mukherjee said, yeah, do or die like situation. And the main thing is that we have to move fast to get our population trained and get it more creative. We have to make sure that if they just swipe off from their brain, he will get a job and will do the same work and the next 50 years would be spent like that. No, no, no. It's a wake-up call for India. For anybody who really just want to go into that same mechanical work, it's a time to innovate, it's a time to be creative, it's a time to be more entrepreneurial. And I think with good brains and good young blood, India is there. I think it's just we need to think about it more, and obviously government has to put up a lot of effort for that.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much to both of our guests for joining us to take the conversation forward.